We're now done finding least common denominators for lists of rational expressions. We're moving on to a second type of example. That is, we're going to be given a fraction now and rewrite that fraction to have a new denominator. This is the second thing you have to do when adding or subtracting rational expressions that have unlike denominators. The first thing will be find the least common denominator, and then the second thing will be to rewrite fractions to have a new denominator. So let's take a look at example 2a. Rewrite the fraction to have the indicated denominator. 5t squared over 2y equals what over 16y squared? Our job is to figure out what goes in place of the question mark. So let's start. I'm going to rewrite my problem, 5t squared all over 2y, and we want that to equal something on top of 16y squared. Let's focus on the denominator first. Specifically, let's focus on the numbers. Let's focus on our denominator first. What is it that we have to multiply by 2y to give us 16y squared? Well, let's look at the numbers. 2 and 16. What do we need to multiply by 2 to give us 16? Well, that's 8, right? 8 times 2 is 16. The rule for fractions says that whatever we multiply by in the denominator, we must also multiply by in the numerator. So that means we'll also have to multiply 8 on top. Now, how about the variables? The y. Y times what gives us y squared? Well, y times y gives us y squared. So if we multiply the bottom by y, we must also multiply the top by y. What does that give us in the numerator? That tells us that in the numerator I have 8 times 5, which is 40, and then t squared times y, which is just t squared y. So in place of the question mark, we would write 40 t squared y, and that's our final answer. See, that wasn't difficult. Let's take a look at example 2. Rewrite the fraction to have the indicated denominator. Example B, negative 7t over 4t minus 12 equals what over 20t minus 60? Again, we're looking to replace the question mark. All right, let me rewrite our problem. I have negative 7t over 4t minus 12. But instead of writing 4t minus 12, what I want to do is factor this denominator so I can see exactly what I need to multiply by to get the new denominator. So again, our first step is going to be factor. I'm going to take out a 4, or the greatest common factor, from each term. When I take out a 4, that leaves me with t minus 3, 4t minus 12. As I continue on, I want to rewrite this fraction as well. I want to factor the denominator, and I'm going to again take out the greatest common factor from each term. In this case, we can pull out a 20. When I pull out a 20, I'm left with t minus 3. And let's check. 20 times t is 20t. 20 times negative 3 is negative 60. So what goes here? Well, as before, we want to look at this expression and figure out what we need to multiply by to get the new expression. At the beginning, it wasn't very clear, but as soon as we factored, we're able to see. Let's look at the numbers first. 4 and 20, the coefficients. What do I need to multiply by 4 to get 20? Well, that's easy. 5. 5 times 4 gives me 20. And whatever I do to the denominator of a fraction, I must also do to the numerator. That means I must also multiply 5 by the numerator. Now let's continue looking. T minus 3 appears here and it appears here. there's nothing we need to multiply by to get it. So we're done. 5 times 4 is 20, t minus 3, and that matches the denominator. So what's our new numerator? 5 times negative 7 is negative 35, and t is just t. So the numerator in place of the question mark is simply negative 35t. Example 2c. Rewrite the fraction to have the indicated denominator. 4m over m squared minus 8m plus 15 equals what over m minus 5 times m minus 3 times m plus 2? Our job is to replace the question mark. Let's rewrite our first rational expression. 4m over, and recall, it's best if we factor this out. M squared minus 8m plus 15 is a trinomial, and that factors as m minus 3 times m minus 5. And the rational expression on this side, we're trying to figure out what goes on top. On the bottom, we have m minus 5 times m minus 3 times m plus 2. Since we factored out the left rational expression denominator, it's obvious what is missing to get to the right rational expression denominator. Notice we have an m minus 3 and m minus 5 appearing. There's one factor that's missing. The factor that's missing is m plus 2. In order to make the rational expression on the left in the denominator match the rational expression on the right in the denominator, we need to add a factor of m plus 2. And if we multiply it by the denominator of this rational expression, we also need to multiply it by the numerator. So we have to multiply it in on top. That tells us that our numerator needs to be 4 times m plus 2. If you'd like, you could multiply it out. So an equivalent numerator would be 4m squared plus 8m. Those are the same. The one on the left is factored out and the one on the right is not. So that completes our video and our topic on least common denominators. We talked about how to find least common denominators and then how to rewrite fractions to have new denominators. Good luck. If you have questions, let us know.